Okay, so we do have quite a few vocabulary things that we need to discuss. So first off, let's talk about what a monomial is. Mono is that that prefix that means one, and so it is a number, so one number, or it's a variable, or it's a product of a number and variable. Okay, so basically it's a term. It's one thing that's all multiplied together or all put together, and we consider that to be a term. And so an example would be like 5x. Okay, that's a product of a number and a variable. Okay, that's an example of a monomial. It's a term. Okay, then we also have 3x squared. Okay, there's more than one variable there. It's x squared, but it's still that product, and so it is another example. 12 is just a number, so that's also an example of a monomial, a single term. 9x squared, y to the 7th. Even though it's a lot longer, it's still multiplication between each of these, and it's still the product of a number and variables, and so it ends up being a single term. It's a monomial. Even if you threw a fraction in there and said negative 5/2 xy to the 4th, that would still be considered a term. Okay, just a fraction by itself would also be a term, or just a variable by itself. Okay, so all of these are examples of single terms. Okay, notice that I separated them with a comma because they're all different. They're all examples of terms. Okay, so monomials with the same variables and exponents are considered like terms, and those are things that we can combine using addition and subtraction. Okay, and we've talked about combining like terms in the past, but it has to be the same variables and exponents in order to do that. Okay, so remember at the beginning of the year we did some notes on exponent rules, how to multiply, how to divide, add, subtract, divide, all of those with monomials, anything that includes exponents. So you're going to want to pull those notes back out. If you don't have them, there is a copy of them still at the beginning of your Google Classroom. Should be around Unit 1 Unit 0, where we talked about just reviewing things. So those notes will be there. It'll be laws of exponents or power rules or something along those lines. So just keep that in mind. You may want to pull those out to use them over the next few days. So let's go ahead and talk about a polynomial. Okay, poly meaning many, so many terms. So it is an expression. Okay, remember an expression does not have an equal sign. It's an expression consisting of many terms. Okay, so an example. 5 is still considered a polynomial because it does fall under the terms, okay? Negative 6x would still be considered 1, even though it's a monomial, okay? It's still a polynomial. So monomials fall under the umbrella of polynomial. Even though there's only one term, it's still classified in the bigger understanding of a polynomial. And then 4x squared minus 1. 4x squared is a term, 1 is a term, and we're subtracting them. So that makes this an expression of many terms. So this is a polynomial. It's a great example of a polynomial. Okay, and here's one with lots of terms. 9x cubed plus 4x squared minus x minus 2. It's got 4 terms. 9x cubed, 4x squared, x, and 2, all being added and subtracted together. That's one expression, but it's a polynomial because it all goes together, okay? Now, there is a proper way to write a polynomial, and hopefully you've noticed that as I've written things. Sometimes you guys will give me an answer and I will rewrite it in a different format. It's because I'm writing it in standard form. And standard form is this. It must be written, any polynomial must be written in alphabetical order when we're dealing with our variables, with the highest exponent first. Okay, we go with the highest exponents and then work our way down from there in alphabetical order. Okay, So that's important for you to know as well. Now, again, this should be review. You should know these terms. You should have seen them before, but I just want to make sure that you have this in your mind as we work through polynomials. You've got to know what these terms mean when I talk about them in class. All right, and so then a degree is the largest exponent. So when we're looking at a polynomial, the largest exponent in one of those terms is considered the degree of the term, okay? So for example, if we're dealing with something that has no degrees, it has no exponent, so like the number 5, there's no exponent on anything, there's no variable, so it's going to have a degree of 0, okay? We call that a constant, okay? That would be a constant. There is no degree, and what would be my constant mean? It's just a number. There's no variable there, there's no exponent, so we call it a constant, okay? Now, what if there is a degree of 1, meaning the highest exponent is 1? Okay, well, if you look here, you might want to call this constant because there's no exponent. But if you remember, okay, any variable here that has any variable that doesn't have a written constant is understood to be 1. So this would be an example, negative 6x would be an example of something with 1 degree. And what we call that is a linear degree, okay? So these are just kind of fancy terms that we use for classifying. All right, the second one, look at this exponent here, or this polynomial. There's a 4x squared, and then there's a constant here. And so the largest exponent in this is a 2. And so this is going to have a degree of 2, and we call that a quadratic. So think about that in our linear functions. We've talked about lines and how there's always just an x and there's anything greater than that x. And then in quadratics, which is what we're going to be moving into, it's an x squared. And we have had this conversation in class before. Okay, and then look at this one. We have a constant, we have a linear, we have a quadratic, and then we have this one that has a cube. Okay, this is all one expression. And so in this one polynomial, the largest exponent is this 3. And we call that a cubic, okay, because it's a cube. All right. And then if we were to have something that had a 4th degree, we would call that quartic. Okay, and there are further names on from that, but 4 is about the extent of what you need to know for this class. And you'll get into the larger things. Really, we'll kind of stop at quadratics for the most part, but you do need to know cubic and quartic as a vocabulary word. Okay. All right, so then there's also, we classify polynomials not just by their degree, okay, but we also, here it says classified by the number of terms. So, for example, this polynomial has 1 term. So remember, we already discussed that. We call that a monomial. Okay? Then this one up here, remember, it had 2 terms. And so with the 2 terms, we would call that a binomial. Bi meaning 2. This one ended up having 4, so we don't have an example of a 3 term, but I'm sure you could come up with an example there. But that's a trinomial. And then anything larger than trinomial, so this has 4 terms, if it had 5 terms, if it had 6 terms, we would call it just a polynomial. Okay, but everything kind of falls under that umbrella of a polynomial, even if it's, these are just kind of specific types of them. And so we do polynomials. And so we'll do the binomials and trinomials. That's just kind of a specific name for them. But the polynomials are more specific, is the more broad general term. Okay, so hopefully that helps kind of clarify that a little bit. All right, and so back down to the very last example here, adding and subtracting polynomials. That's where we're going to start. It's the simple stuff that we've done in the past. So you can add or subtract them by simply combining the like terms. Okay, so remember, you're going to be taking this, and it's similar, as in it has the same exponents and variables, and so we're going to combine it with this one. So those 2 things are going to get combined, and you're going to write your answer right here. Okay, and then I'm going to use a different color just to kind of show this a little bit better. These 2, this x squared and this negative 5x, have the same, so you're going to combine those and put them here. And then the final step is this third example. So a 3x and a negative 23, and you're going to combine those and put it right here, okay? And so if we do that very quickly, we have a negative 1 and a positive 2, which brings us to 1x squared. And then we have a 11 and a negative 5, so that brings us to a positive 6x. And then we have a 13 and a negative 23, which gives us a negative 10. And so our final answer on a problem like this is going to look like this right here. X squared plus 6x minus 10. Okay? And then when we subtract, we do the same type of step. So you're going to find that those x squareds, you're going to combine them, bring your answer down. Just remember that we're combining with a negative this time. Then you're going to take that 5x and that 7x and combine them, and it's going to go right here. And then you have this over here. It doesn't have anything to combine with, so you're just going to bring it down, okay? And so when we do that, 4x minus 3x is going to be 1x squared. 5x minus 7x, right here, 5x and 7x, is going to be a negative 2x. And then 0, there's nothing over here, minus the 1 is going to give you a negative 1. And so your final answer on something like this, written in standard form, is x squared minus 2x minus 1. Okay? And so those are just kind of the basics, the bring it all together, just kind of review of monomials, polynomials, and then adding and subtracting them, or combining like terms. Okay? And I'm just going to write that here. We call this combining like terms. Okay, that's what this is. Alright, so what you're going to work on today is I'm going to pass this out. This is going to be a polynomial quiz for you, and it's going to go through sections that we do each day. So first off, I want you to take the top 6, and you're going to go ahead and classify these. I want you to classify by degree and number of terms. So use these notes right here, degree and number of terms. Okay. And then we're going to move into, I want you to do 7 through 14. Yeah, 7 through 14 right here, okay? And it's just adding and subtracting. So it's going to look like this, combining like terms, adding and subtracting, okay? So, so keep that in mind. If you need any help, so you're just doing the front side today, it's 14 questions. If you need any help, ask questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help. I'll do everything that I can to help you, okay? So just make sure that you're working on this. The quiz will be due at the end of the week, so you want to make sure that you get it completed in class while we have some time, okay?